My name is Todd Philips. I'm a film editor, advertising executive, and sometimes musician from Boston, Massachusetts.
How did you meet Weezer?
Originally, I was the drummer for the Juliana Hatfield 3. We were touring in 1995. The Blue album had just come out and was doing well. And Juliana would sometimes, for an encore, do an acoustic cover of Say It Ain't So. And so the guys in Weezer started coming around to shows. I think I met Rivers and Matt Sharp first, and I became friendly with Matt Sharp. And that was how I met them.
How did the offer to play with them come about? I think I read it from Mikey.
Well, it's complicated because you have to realize what happened with Weezer was they put out the Blue record and then they were making Pinkerton, and Rivers had relocated to Cambridge, Mass to go to Harvard to study classical composition. So he was around here, and Mikey and I were very visible in the Boston music scene around that time. Mikey was my best friend, and I had invited him to start playing with Juliana Hatfield because sort of the three had broken up and we were working on a new record, and I loved Mikey's playing. And so he and I got extra close, and he started playing with Juliana. Rivers was milling around town, studying at Harvard. I think they were recording some of Pinkerton at Fort Apache here.
Oh, yeah, they did. I think it was September 95 about. I think they're doing some stuff at Fort Apache.
Yeah. I remember going into the studio one day because the guys who owned Fort Apache they were my manager. They managed Juliana Hatfield. So I was in there a lot. I remember them working on that. Rivers, he wrote some songs. He did some solo shows here in Boston. I think they called it the Little Rivers Band.
Oh, or maybe just internally. I remember, I think I was talking to Zeph Courtney. Is that how you pronounce his name?
Yeah, Zephon.
Yeah, he said it's the Little Rivers Band. I think Rivers referred to it as Lovely or Homie.
I think it was Homie. That sounds right to me. And Mikey got involved in that somehow. And then we did a lot of touring, Mikey and I with Juliana, like we did Lilith Fair and all this other stuff. And Rivers ultimately went back to California. And we were recording a Juliana Hatfield record called Bed. Rivers called Mikey at the recording studio we were recording at and said, Matt Sharp has exited Weezer permanently. Do you want to fly out to LA and meet the other guys and audition? And so we finished recording Bed. Mikey went out there. He got the gig. And then that fall, I was sort of done playing with Juliana. It just sort of run its course. Like we've been playing together for 10 years. And so Mikey and I decided to move to Los Angeles together because he was going to go join Weezer. And I had two invitations to jam with people. One was with Jennifer Finch, who is the bass player of L7. She had a new band that was on Interscope called Other Star People, and she wanted me to drum for them. And then Matt actually asked me to play drums for the Rentals for the upcoming when 7 More Minutes was about to come out. So I went out there and those two things were happening. And this is exactly what happened. It was sort of obvious that Maverick was not really into the new Rentals record. It seemed like they were having problems dealing with each other.
I think recording started probably around, 96, and it just kept going. He recorded at a bunch of recording studios. I think the cost was
spent an incredible amount of money. Yeah, he went to Madrid or Barcelona. I love that record, let me just say. And I love Matt Sharp. I think he's an excellent guy. But it was sort of apparent to me, Interscope was really into this Jennifer Finch project. Like this whole thing had just happened where A&M and Geffen were absorbed by Interscope in 1999. It was like this huge industry collapse type of thing, but they kept Other Star People. So I decided to play with her. That album took a while to be released. And during that time, so it was like 99 and 2000, Rivers was just writing a ton of music. Pinkerton hadn't done so well. And I think he was really preoccupied with getting the Green record precisely perfect. And he was just writing hundreds and hundreds of songs. And Pat wasn't into living in LA. He lived up in Portland, Oregon. Pat didn't want to come down and flush out all of this material. It sort of went on for years. And so I just started playing with them, to work on new songs. Rivers was really into doing cover sets. That's how we did that Nirvana cover set. And we also did a show doing all Oasis tunes. Those were both Goat Punishment songs. You know, Weezer was definitely like on a mellow swing right there. You know, what they hadn't really come back. It was sort of unsure as to what was ultimately going to happen to them. So it was really just workshopping all of this new material with Rivers and helping him out. Between the Green record and Maladroit, I think there was like 10 that we worked on that ended up on those two records, and then a lot on the do you call it Alone, the demos?
Yeah, I think there's 3 Alone records, and then there's a bunch of bundles that basically comprise from I think 89, 90 to 2017.
Well, I remember in particular we worked on a song called My Brain is Working Overtime that I thought was excellent. I thought that was a great song. Ultimately, we did that for like 18 months, did those shows. It was a blast. And then like they were ready to make the Green record. So Pat moved back down to LA to record the album. And, you know, that was that. And then I went on tour with Jennifer Finch.
And how did it feel being asked to become Weezer's drummer?
I don't feel like I was asked to become Weezer's drummer. I really feel like I was just asked to help Rivers facilitate his songwriting process. So I didn't consider myself as a part of the band. I didn't think Rivers one day was going to say, you know what, Todd? I prefer you over Pat. Like, we're going to do this. Like, it was never like that. It was just, you know, I was like helping out a friend work through his creative process. Yeah.
I was going to ask if you thought at the time that it could be a long term, or was it with the understanding that you were filling in for him?
I understood that I was filling in. I mean, I think there was definitely, you know, there were some nights where I'd be lying awake in bed where I'd be thinking, oh, wouldn't it be great? You know, like I love his songs. They're a great band. I loved Pinkerton. I still think they're the best record. And
One of my favorites.
We would jam on those songs. I adored playing those songs. I think Get You is kind of like Rivers' best work. Incredible number. So yeah, I mean, I had like secret little hopes that like that might pan out like that, but I was very realistic about the whole thing. It was funny because those shows, I guess we did 2 Go Punishment shows. That was the cover sitch. We did the Nirvana one at the Garage. And then I think we played in Santa Barbara for the Oasis one. And it was like super low budge. You know, we were just like loading gear and like Rivers 4Runner, and Brian was driving like an old Ford Escort that his mom had given him or something. Like, it was not glamorous at all. It was, you know.
You also kind of answered another question I had, which was there any talk by that time of new material, or was just Rivers exclusively focused on covers? Did he ever talk about why he wanted to perform exclusively covers live?
He didn't talk about why he wanted to do that live. No. Like I said, we're working on a lot of new material in the rehearsal space, stuff that ended up on both the Green record and on Maladroit. We definitely worked on Dope Nose. But like I said, he had hundreds and hundreds of songs written. Like, I think he showed me a list. Might have been like 400 songs, original songs that he'd written for the Green record. Yeah.
Catalog of riffs, would it have been?
I don't think it was a catalog of riffs. I think these were pretty fully formed songs. I mean, he had some ska song that we worked on.
The ska song, really I think it was called.
Yeah, it was really all over the place. It was funny. And the other thing that we did, he would sort of pick songs that were doing really well on the radio, and we would just play them in the rehearsal space because he wanted to get used to like how they were formed or how they were written. Like, I remember we were playing like Flagpole Sitta and like Lighter or Thumb by Caius. It was like a whole crazy range of songs that we would jam on that he just wanted to like think about the song structures and how these songs were written.
Honestly, it sounds kind of funny, like hearing Weezer do Flagpole Sitta. Like, it sounds like I expect them to do.
We definitely jam on that. But also, like I just said, on the other spectrum, like we did Caius, you know, it was like this really obscure, you know, desert metal tune. And, you know, he was just kind of exploring a lot of different genres and ways of songwriting, I think.
After the reception of Pinkerton, overthinking everything, trying to...
He was overthinking it. He was definitely second guessing, you know, the process. I think the Green record ended up great. Whatever mad scientist thing he was doing, it worked. So.
What was the general mood of the band like at the time?
Like I said, there was a lot of doubt as to what was going to happen with Weezer because of how Pinkerton had performed. And Mikey and Rivers, I remember they got this kind of dank apartment, like where the 405 meets the 10 that they shared. Rivers painted his bedroom black, but it wasn't like he was depressed or anything like that. It was just like, you know, money was relatively tight. They were living in this like incredibly nondescript pad. But no, it was all fun. The mood was not dour. Nobody was depressed. I've read things online where people said like Rivers went into a huge depression during that time, but it wasn't like that at all. It was all good stuff.
Do you have any recollection of where the name Goat Punishment came from?
Yeah, it came from me. Juliana and my band prior, this band called Bullet LaVolta, had a sound guy named John Williams, who was this genius. He was hilarious. He was in a really great band in the 80s called Volcano Suns. It was on a Bullet LaVolta tour. We had a CB in one of our vans, and we would sometimes like talk to truckers, when we were touring in the van. And this trucker he was driving, and this trucker said, like, what band you hauling in that in that van? And John just keyed the mic and just said, Goat Punishment. Like, it came off the top of his head. It was really hilarious. And so we've kind of used that as a joke for like a decade before Rivers took it. Like,
wow. What do you remember of the two gigs you played? I think December 13th, 1998.
Okay, that was the thing at that night at the garage was called Club Sucker. It was like run by Reginald Cream Davis. It was packed, like word had gotten out that Go Punishment was Weezer. And I just remember like it was so full, like we just had to be escorted in. The doorway went right up to the stage. Like there was like a side door. So we were literally just like carted on and carted off because there was no way we could even walk through to the front. And we just cranked out like, I don't know, 6-7 Nirvana songs.
Yeah, Mr. Mustache, Aneurysm, Breed, Dive, Swap Meet, and Blue.
You got it.
The band later released a recording of that show around 2000, 2001-ish on Weezer.com.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so we have a recording of that.
I will check it out. Excellent. And then the second one was in Santa Barbara. That was definitely the Oasis set. We did a bunch of Oasis songs. I don't think there's a recording of that. When Mikey and Pat rejoined the band, this is a funny story. So I was playing in that band with Jennifer Finch, other Star People, and we had a gig at Spaceland with the White Stripes opening. Like the White Stripes were coming through on their first tour. And I think Goat Punishment with Mikey and Pat headlined that show anonymously. So it was White Stripes. I know it was Go Punishment, Other Star People, and White Stripes at Spaceland.
Yeah, I think that would have been June 22nd, 2000.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, and they also debuted Slob at that show as well.
Oh yeah, that's a great song.
Yeah,
that was on Maladroit, right?
Yeah.
I think they did a Goat Punishment show in Long Beach where they also played Slob. It was like it might have been a bowling alley. I might be wrong. I don't know. And then they went to work on the record, and then I didn't see them again play live until Coachella.
Off the top of my head, that might have been April 19th, 2001 at the Empire Polo Field.
Yeah, that might have been the second Coachella ever.
Do you remember any of the songs you would have played at the Oasis show? Because there's no set list known for that one.
Yeah, we did Rock and Roll Star, Live Forever. We definitely did Supersonic, Cigarettes and Alcohol. I think that might be it.
I think they got kicked out after 30 minutes or something like that.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
I don't remember much. I remember the show was good. Something weird happened where, I got cut off. And then people were pretty cranky on the way back to LA because it's like a longer drive than you'd expect. Like it's like almost 2 hours and it was late at night and whatever. Yeah.
Were there any other plans to play other shows as Goat Punishment? There exists speculation that the performance of Metallica covers was planned.
I have no recollection of that at all.
Fair. Did you rehearse any Weezer songs, old or new, with the band?
Both, yes. We were definitely doing a lot of Pinkerton songs in the rehearsals and some stuff off the Blue record. I think it's usually just to like loosen up to get,
into
when
the groove
we get to practice. Yeah, to get into the groove, to like work on new material. Like I said, my brain is working overtime. We were definitely playing a ton. I thought that was going to be a single. I'm surprised that didn't make it onto a record. So,
did Rivers or anybody else record any of the rehearsals?
I think Rivers was recording the rehearsals. I can't say for sure, but I think he was. Yeah.
How was Mikey fitting in with the band at the time?
He was fitting in very well. And then I think he kind of moved up to Portland with Pat for a while, and they did some Special Goodness stuff and toured to Special Goodness. And when that was happening, this friend of mine named Ted Lazinski was playing bass with Rivers and Brian and I for a lot of the songwriting stuff. He was the bass player in Hedwig and the Angry Inch, both the Broadway musical and the movie. He had moved to LA to play music, and he had started playing with the Jennifer Finch band I was talking about. And so when Mikey went up to Portland, Oregon, Ted was playing with us. And so Mikey was kind of in and out of the picture. Like he definitely wasn't around for a lot of these like songwriting shedding sessions that I'm talking about. Like that was definitely with this guy Ted.
I think that would have been the summer of '99 they toured.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think like Pat fixed up a van and they went out with Adam Willard, I think, playing drums.
And I think
that makes sense.
Carl as well. Well, actually, I want to say his name's Lee Loretta. Was it that did drums?
That could be.
Break '99, I think it would have been around when Mikey came down.
I remember two different phases. One was when Rivers and Mikey lived together in that apartment in Santa Monica that was kind of dank. And then Rivers bought a house in the Hollywood Hills. And that was when we were doing a lot with Ted. Like Rivers definitely moved into that house at that point.
This is obviously around the time when Rivers started the Black Room period. Were you noticing any of the effects of that?
No, like I said, I feel like a lot of that is exaggerated. Like he definitely did paint his bedroom black, but there was nothing in Rivers' like personality that made it seem like he'd gone through this like dark phase or anything like that. Nothing I remember.
Thank you so much for taking the time to answer some questions.
No problem.